The Tale of Peter Rabbit. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits: Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in under the root of a big tree. "Now," said Mrs. Rabbit, one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden." Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail went to go down the lane to pick blackberries, but Peter was very naughty. He ran right to Mr. McGregor's garden. First, he ate some lettuces and some beans, and he ate some radishes. Then he felt rather sick. Turning a corner, he should Peter meet, but Mr. McGregor. He jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rake and calling, "Stop, thief!" Peter was very frightened. He rushed all over the garden and lost both his shoes. Then he tripped and got caught in the net. Some friendly sparrows fell down to help him. Mr. McGregor came up, but Peter wriggled free just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. Peter rushed into the tool shed and hid in a watering can. Then he sneezed. Ka-choo! And Mr. McGregor was after him again. Peter leaped out of a window, knocking over 3 tree plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor to get through. Mr. McGregor went back to his work and Peter was alone again. But he was very frightened and he was very, very lost. After a while, Peter found a door in the wall. A mouse was running underneath, carrying peas and beans to her family. Peter asked the way to the gate, but she had a large pea in her mouth and she couldn't answer. Peter sat across the garden and came to a pond where a white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still. Peter thought it best to keep going, and he had heard some very alarming things about cats. Then suddenly, quite close to him, Peter heard a sound. Scritch, scratch, 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 scritch. He scuttled underneath the bushes. Nothing. But as nothing happened, he crept out. There was Mr. McGregor hewing onions, and just beyond him was the gate. Very quietly, Peter jumped down and started to run as fast as he could. Then he slipped underneath the gate and off and he was safe at last. Mr. McGregor soon found Peter's blue jacket and shoes. He hung them on a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter didn't stop running until he was safely home. He was so tired that he flopped down on the sandy and ground and closed his eyes. Poor Peter Rabbit was not very well during the evening. Mrs. Rabbit put him to bed and made some chamomile tea to give him. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and delicious blackberries for supper. The end.